Hello everyone, I am FIDE instructor Atul Dahale and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I am going to show you a very interesting game played by our young Indian Grandmaster R Praggnanandhaa against former world number 2 Shakhriyar Mamedyarov from Azerbaijan in the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour, which is being held in Oslo, Norway. Praggnanandhaa is having great run. In the second round, he beat Mamedyarov with a convincing score, and we are going to look out one of his game in this video. So guys, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you are new here. The game starts with d4. Praggnanandhaa is white in this game. Mamedyarov played d5, c4 and then c6. In their previous encounter, Praggnanandhaa played awesome chess. Okay, so knight of 3, knight to f6 and e3. This is a very rock solid opening, I will say, and here the idea of e3 is to support the pawn on c4. Here black plays bishop to g4, pinning this knight over here. Praggnanandhaa says like, okay, I'm going to kick this bishop away, so he plays h3. Bishop goes behind to h5 square, then knight goes to c3 square, and now e6 was played. Queen b3, directly attacking to the pawn on b7 square. Here Mamedyarov plays queen to b6, and now here he plays a very interesting move, that is g4. This is a very aggressive move. The idea is to kick this bishop away and immediately play knight to e5. So guys, I will tell you one thing, whenever it is possible for you, try to place your knight in the center of the board, okay? Because once you place the knight in the center of the board, you control 8 squares in the position. As I can highlight here, you can see knight can control all this square. But the idea of knight going to e5 in this position or playing e5 in this position is to capture the bishop on g6 square. That's the main thing. Okay, black plays knight d7, directly attacking the knight on e5, knight into g6 as per the plan, h into g6, and now in this position he plays bishop g2 because knight into g4 was a threat. Means if you play any other move in this position, knight into g4, h into g4 will lead to rook into h1. For example, bishop d2, if you play knight g4, h g4 and rook into h1 is the threat. So here Praggnanandhaa plays bishop to g2, supporting the rook on h1 square, and now here black played g5, and now here he captures the queen. This is a very bold decision by Praggnanandhaa because he is going into the battle where positional understanding needs to be there, but he has a lot of confidence in himself. That's why he goes for this thing. And I will tell you, all our youngsters, they know their openings quite well, so he knows what he's doing. He fixes the pawn here by playing c5, knight goes to d7 square, and now he proceeds on the queen side. This structure, which is there, e3, d4, c5 and b4, it is called as the V structure also, and or the triangle structure, which white usually gets. The main point of this structure is to open up the game on the queen side. Here white will be willing to play b5 on and open up the b file. That's what exactly happened. Usually whenever the flank attack is going on, players try to open up the game in the center of the board. Flank attack means if you divide the board in two parts, on the queen side, this is the queen side and this is the king side, the center is there in these two files. Whenever you push the pawns on any side of the board, that is called as the flank attack. So here Mamedyarov plays principled way. He plays e5. Praggnanandhaa simply castles because he needs to get the rook in the game. Here bishop e7 was played, and now as per the planning, he goes for b5. Whenever you capture here, knight will be very well placed, plus the knight will be jumping on c5, c7 square, d6 square is also under control, rook will be coming on the b file, and white will be having comfortable position. So he did not go for this thing. He castles in this situation, rook to e1 because rook needs to be activated, bishop to d8, and now here he plays knight e2. A very interesting move. Why is he playing this move? Because he is expecting that this pawn might be captured, and in that case he might be getting this knight towards f5, or maybe he can even capture with the knight. So he is preparing for everything. Waiting, patience is very important. Rook to e8, and now bishop goes to a3 square, because once e4, knight d4 will be played, the pawn on c5 was hanging, but now after bishop to a3, the pawn on c5 is protected. Here e captures d4, knight captures d4, the pawn on c6 is under attack, so he supports the pawn with knight to e5. He captures b into c6, b captures c6, and now rook arrives on the 7th rank. We all know this thing, that whenever the rooks arrives on the 7th rank, it is a very beautiful place for the rook. The reason is also quite clear. The reason is because usually the pawns are on the initial square, and when the rook comes on the 7th rank, all the pawns which are sitting on the initial square will be attacked very easily. And also the pawn on c6 is also a little bit vulnerable in this situation. Okay, bishop e7 was played, attacking the pawn on c5 square. He supports the pawn here with rook c1, bishop to f8, no issues, and now this bishop is not doing that great job. As they say, whenever your piece is not doing that great job, you should try to shift it to a different location. So he plays bishop to f1, a very wise decision, because now he's aiming towards bishop to a6 and maybe bishop b7 and attack the pawn on c6 square. We never know. Here knight was placed in the center of the board. Now knight might be going to d2 followed by c4, so he stops that plan with rook to c2. Always remember, you need to stop your opponent's activity. It is not just about you, it is also about your opponent's activity in the position. Here he plays g6, stopping knight to f5, and also maybe preparing for bishop to g7 so that he can control the a1 to h8 diagonal. Here king g2, supporting and stopping knight f3, this kind of jumps. Knight to f6, he goes back in the situation. Bishop a6, as I mentioned earlier. Rook a b8. Here you can of course capture the pawn on a7 square, but again rook a8 will be played. So he's being a little bit patient. He says like, I don't want to capture the pawn on a7, I just want to go for the pawn on c6. So he plays rook c7, which is a very clever move. Okay, after this move, rook comes on the b1 square, which is not that cool move, because now he just simply loses the pawn on c6 square. Knight c4 was played, and here in this situation, Praggnanandhaa came up with a very beautiful exchange sacrifice. It reminds me of Petrosian, who used to give this kind of sacrifices and destroys his opponent all the defensive resources. He comes up with rook into c4, d capture c4, and now bishop capture c4. In this situation, Praggnanandhaa was actually thinking what to do and everything after his opponent makes some move, but here suddenly Shakhriyar Mamedyarov decided to resign the game, and that was a big surprise. Okay, although the position is quite difficult for black, because bishop into f7 is the threat and he cannot really save everything. Let's suppose he moves the rook somewhere to a8 square or something like that, we can even capture bishop into f7, or even rook into f7 is simply idea, because this bishop is having indirect attack on this thing. The knight on f6 is hanging. Even if you try to do something in this position, you cannot really save everything. If you play knight h7 this position, you can simply capture rook into h7 and rook into a7, and rook on a8 is hanging. Otherwise you can simply win the game by other means also. So I don't want to get into the details. This is just simply lost position, so he resigns the game. I hope that you enjoyed this game played by Praggnanandhaa. We are hoping that he is going to play more interesting game. I'll be coming back with more interesting games for you. Till that moment, like this video, subscribe to our channel, and goodbye, take care, love you all.